So obviously I have had a ton of people suggest that I should read One Piece, and I've always been daunted by it. You know, there's a lot of chapters. I think there's over 1,000 now. Well, now I'm done with 302 chapters in about a week. So I suggest reading it as well because it goes quicker than you could ever imagine. Anyway, let me get on with the review of One Piece East Blue Saga. East Blue consists of 6 arcs, which total 100 manga chapters and 61 animated episodes. I'm reading the manga, so that's what I'll be discussing in this video. The 6 arcs in order are Romance Dawn, Orange Island, Syrup Village, Baratie, Arlong Park, and Loguetown. Every arc will be placed on a tier list, and when I catch up to Wano, that will also be placed on the same tier list. Now, on with the video. Starting off with the first arc, Romance Dawn, we are introduced to Luffy's character. We find out his goal is to become the king of the pirates, and we also find out that he may be cut out for this kind of work, when he gives himself a scar under his eye with the knife. In this arc, we meet 5 recurring characters in One Piece, including Shanks, Zoro, Luffy, Alvida, and Kobe, who all get updates in the story every few chapters. Besides Shanks, who gets them rarely, but obviously he becomes a main character later on down the line. This chapter shows us Zoro's level of honor and kindness for people, like when he ate the girl's food that had already fallen off the floor, and told Luffy to tell the girl that he liked it. It also shows quite possibly the worst security I've ever seen in an anime. I mean, he was supposed to be a very strong, imprisoned person, and Luffy and a little girl got over the wall with extreme ease. He could have just escaped so easily if anyone would have helped him. Anyway, this is nothing more than a simple introduction arc showing us both Zoro and Luffy's power and potential. We learn that Zoro wants to become the greatest swordsman, and we also get to see his backstory and why he wants to become that. After Zoro is broken out of imprisonment, he agrees to join Luffy's crew, and the Straw Hat Pirates begin. Overall, I see a lot of people rate this arc very high, and I just can't do the same. This arc was pretty solid, but it was nothing more than a simple introduction. And it was very short. Especially in comparison to other One Piece arcs, this just isn't in the same tier. So for these reasons, I'll be giving Romance Dawn a C+ on the tier list. The best moment in this arc is when Shanks loses his arm. We see how much he cares for Luffy as well as how badass he is. The only problem with this moment is that it could have hit so much harder had they developed his character a little more, and showed us a little more of Shanks. But this arc is still pretty good. I would give it an above average 6 out of 10. Now we move on to Orangetown, where we are introduced to the clown Buggy and Nami. We discover that Nami dislikes pirates and see the first person besides Luffy with devil fruit powers. Buggy is a villain that I very much so enjoy. He adds comedic value when One Piece can use it sometimes, when it's very dark. He obviously isn't a very intimidating villain. Luffy disposes of him easily and saves the town people from him, but Buggy is still a fun, recurring character. Nami is shown to be a clever thief when she steals the map to the Grand Line. We see that she will double-cross people whenever she has something to gain, which adds build-up and intrigue as to why she is the way she is. Nami reluctantly and unofficially joins the crew for the time being in this arc as well. I liked this arc and had fun reading it, however, I did feel sort of bored at some points, especially when Luffy was locked in the cage and Zoro was hurt. I think that this arc is overall worse than Romance Dawn and probably belongs in the bottom of the C+ tier. The best moment of this arc, in my opinion, is when the dog wants to protect his owner's store. It was genuinely one of the most emotional moments of One Piece that I have read even up until this point, so it deserves to be called the best moment of this arc. Overall, I give Orangetown a 5.5 out of 10. Syrup Village is now up, and I see why a lot of people hate this arc. I think the introduction of Usopp ruins it for them, because honestly he is a genuinely annoying character at first. I understand this side, but I actually really enjoyed Usopp and thought his lying was justified. He lies because of how alone he was as a child, and also to help Kaya, who was a sickly girl who loved hearing his stories. Captain Kuro is where this arc takes a little bit of a shift for me. I'm not a very big fan of him. I think he was supposed to come off very intimidating, and he really just didn't give me that effect at all. I just think of him as boring, and the fact that Luffy absolutely folded him was just further proof to my point. The fight was kind of meh in my opinion, and for that reason the arc isn't that good to me. Overall, I think it's average. I'd give it a solid 5 out of 10, but not better than the first two. I will put it at C tier. Now it's time to talk about the first arc that absolutely hooked me into One Piece, being Baratie. This is where my current favorite character Sanji was introduced, and wow, what an introduction it was. We get to see his backstory, which still at chapter 302 is a top 3 backstory in One Piece easily. The owner of this restaurant was also an awesome character, who gave up everything for Sanji, even eating his own legs so that Sanji wouldn't starve. This arc introduces Sanji's passion for food and why it's so vital to his character, which was done absolutely amazingly. The pirate and Don Craig's goon crew, who Sanji fed, was also a very good character. I loved the part where he helped Sanji live by giving him the gas mask. Don Craig as a villain was the first time I had ever felt in One Piece that a villain actually had an intimidating power. His body armor was really strong, and he had a very strong gas, which you could only survive if you had a mask. And the Straw Hat crew and the chefs versus Don Craig and Zoro versus Mihawk were the 2 best fights of One Piece up until that point, easily. Mihawk became my favorite character for about 20 chapters just because of how badass that moment actually was. I mean, seriously, when Mihawk uses a small blade and calls Zoro a rabbit, but ends up recognizing him for how much of a warrior he actually is, and ends up actually fighting him with his true blade, S-tier moment right there. Great moment in One Piece. Luffy not interrupting it also shows how much respect he has for Zoro, as well as Zoro's immense pride. Zoro was permanently scarred after this battle, which he still keeps to this day. I think this arc was fantastic at the time. I probably would have given it an 8.5 when I read it, but now that I have seen more arcs, it's probably bumped down to an 8, which is not bad at all. It's an amazing arc. It easily belongs in the B tier. Arlong Park is the best arc in the East Blue Saga in my opinion. Nami has the best backstory and easily the best moment in the East Blue Saga. We meet Arlong, who is the most intimidating villain we had seen so far, besides Mihawk. Period. He had an intimidating design and an intimidating crew. Nami is shown to be a very sympathetic and intelligent character in this arc as well, when she spared Usopp by stabbing her hand and made extremely detailed maps at a very young age. The moment when Nami breaks down and cries, asks for help, and Luffy says of course he will help her, which cuts to an awesome squad shot, was just unbelievably awesome. I loved that part of One Piece, still one of the best parts in my opinion. If I could use one arc to explain what the Straw Hat crew is really all about, it would definitely be this arc. I mean, Luffy just had to say, let's do it, or something along those lines, like let's go after Arlong, and the boys just said right. Such a badass moment, I love this, and when Luffy destroyed Arlong's sword, which was supposed to be hyped up as this unbreakable, just awesome sword, just because he was enraged that he said he uses Nami, I got goosebumps. I think this arc is an easy 8.5 out of 10. In any other anime, it'd probably be a 9, 9.5, but we have a lot of good arcs to cover, so it will stay at an 8.5. I will also be sticking this arc at the A tier. Loguetown doesn't introduce a whole lot and doesn't add to the story dramatically in any way. We are introduced to Smoker and his crew, and that's about it. This arc just had a lot of really fun moments, including Buggy's return, Luffy smiling through his execution, Zoro getting 2 new swords, and Zoro throwing up the sword to see if it would cut his arm. I still personally thought this arc was pretty enjoyable and fun. However, this arc is quite short and didn't really feel like an arc to me. I would probably give it a 6 out of 10, but it's very short, so I'll be sticking it as C+ tier. This is it for my first One Piece review throughout my first read. If you guys enjoyed it, please like, comment, and subscribe. If we reach 20 likes, I'll continue this series. If we hit 100, I will make it weekly. Thanks for watching. It's been Echo XP. See ya.